All right, morning everyone. Hope everyone had a great Christmas weekend, and this is our final Monday wrap up with Cody Davis before 2026 kicks in. And we got a special guest on. We got Coach Nick, lead Pray HoDL. He's on Christmas break, so he's going to join us today. So, morning, fellas.
Morning. Happy to be here.
No,
Good morning.
yeah. So, quickly, let's maybe talk about Christmas takeaways, what we did, and I know Cody was hiking quite a bit, right? So, Cody, how was your Christmas holiday?
I got more steps than my average. Probably got as much as Uber gets every day. But nah, it was fun. So I got to hang out with family, went hiking, relaxed. Didn't think a whole lot about the rentals. So that was pretty nice.
Nice. Coach Nick, how was your Christmas holiday, man? I know we talked on Saturday, but how was it?
Oh, my Christmas break has been great so far. Going with friends, family. We have a Knott's Berry Farm passes too, so we went to their like Christmas thing. They have like Snoopy on ice and everything, and it was actually a lot of fun. It's another way to get your steps out here at amusement parks in SoCal. It's been a blast, especially the family time, enjoying that. We just went on that vacation during Thanksgiving break to Belize and Honduras. Grant came in and Cozumel, Mexico. So we've just been chilling to kind of end the year in reflection and looking forward to 2026.
All right, very cool. And we were kind of talking right before we went live. We're heading into 2026, but I think a lot of people sometimes forget on reflecting on the past year before they head into the new year, and trying to set all these goals and what they want to do. But sometimes it's better to reflect on how the past year went. And I think a lot of people know Cody's story, and this seems like the year that he's kind of transitioned a little bit. So maybe Cody, you can kind of reflect or talk about 2025.
Yeah, well, this past 12 months was a cleanup year. I opted to do the build fast, scale big, relative to where I was coming from, of course. People that can buy bigger and faster, but it's all about where you're coming from. So I did that model from 2021, where I had, at the beginning of that year, I had 24 units. And then at the end of the year, I had 81, and then scaled to a couple hundred and did a motel flips and RV park flips and home flips and a bunch of different things. And I am now cleaning those up, and this year was the year of paying for them. So going through the tough pills to swallow and exiting some partnerships, paying down a lot of debt, selling a few assets, and so it's just been a cleanup year. It's been a big learning year that mistakes have consequences, and it's smart to do it a little bit slower moving forward. So that's going to help me shape my goals.
Yes, we'll get it out of the way real quick before Nick talks about 2025. But yes, the Bears had a tough loss yesterday, but they had a good showing. And Alex is a Niners fan, so he's here chiming in. But Nick, so yeah, 2025. How did you have you been reflecting back on it, or have you just been setting goals for 2026?
Always some reflection going into the year. Just trying to decide, how well you did, which way you're going to go, because kind of knowing where you're at is helpful going into the future. As I told you, I coached basketball for 20 years. Every year, whether it was high school or college or travel ball, you're reflecting on your season, but you have to look forward to the next one, and in the next one, you're trying to figure out, what do you want to do next year? What do you want to have? Who do you want to be? And even now, right now, I'm like, where do I want to live? Whether it's like in Charlotte or here in SoCal or anything else. So reflection's a big part of life, and it doesn't matter if it's your investing. It could be your marriage. It could be your relationship with your friends, your family. It could be your relationship with your children. It could be anything. So reflection is an important part of growth. Being able to say you're wrong, being able to say I should have probably did this differently, or being able to say this is working, and I'm going to continue to do that, because reflection is a big deal, but it has to be honest reflection. If you're not honest with yourself, a lot of people like to rationalize. I have people I work with through my men's Bible studies and other things, and people, especially men, we like to rationalize our mistakes. Well, I did this because of that. No, 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 no. What you did was wrong. You have to own it, and then you have to move forward in a way that's honorable to who you want to be and who you want to become, right? So that's the difference for me, I guess, is a lot of reflection on my transitioning to different things. Like, I did real estate. I had duplex. I built an ADU from the detached garage. The other one had an ADU, and went to those. I was my own property manager. Then I sold everything, and I went to Bitcoin and been doing that and learning how to do different things like covered calls and long options and different stuff, and even YouTube. Trying to reflect on the channel. Okay, I got 306 subscribers in 4 months. How do I, get to 1,000, or how do I become better, or how do I not get burnt out by doing a video every single day? So all those things are reflections going into the new year. And my wife and I have a good New Year's Eve that we're going to be planning. We do a business meeting every month. We got our Google Drives and we go through these different steps. But we're going to be reflecting on what do we want in the future going forward.
For you, Cody, has it anything changed maybe heading into 2026? Because you recently got married, so big changes for you in 2025, right? So 2026 would be your first year as a married couple. Is there any different outlooks or goals you guys have in mind in that sense?
Yeah, we have liquidity goals, which I haven't really had a whole bunch of in the past. I've been in the mindset of if you keep earning more money and you have enough cash flow, you don't need to hold a bunch of liquidity. But if you add someone to the mix who wants more liquidity and you start talking about it, you see the benefits of it, and wherever you go, there you are, right? If you go to school, don't be surprised when you're in a classroom. So I was just of the mindset of go, 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 and let's reinvest everything. And it's nice to look up and smell the roses. And that's what I got. Part of what I got in marriage is like, hey, let's look at what we have. Because she has her own properties and she's got her incomes and she's got disposable cash flow from things she's invested her time into and her money into. So now we have that goal of, hey, let's set 250 aside, and it'll probably be a money market or something simple that earns 3%. And it's not going to be an investment. It's just going to be to say we did it, prove to ourselves that we can set money aside, and just have it in addition to the property reserves in case anything ever does blow up. We all know that can happen in real estate.
Sure.
I think
Cool.
anytime,
Go.
well, I'm not saying you're over leveraged, but I think the great balance of marriage is finding a balance in everything you do. So I think that's awesome that you guys are working together. She is your complement, and it's very clear in this way. It's like, okay, I'm going to have a savings account. I'm going to get my high yield savings or whatever it is, and you might have just these benefits you never expected, like less stress, less strain, less worry, less concern, and I think a lot of people, whether it's in Bitcoin or stocks or real estate especially, you tend to be house rich and cash poor, and I know that because you move from one deal to the next and you're always leveraging that. But when you can build that account, you end up, in a way that allows you to relax, to enjoy life and not be worried, especially if you're in like a SoCal area when you're worried about evictions or things like that. You want to be able to have money on the side. And I think there's always, it's tough because as a Bitcoin person, you think money's going to zero. Fiat is terrible because they just keep printing it, buy Bitcoin. At the same time, if things crash, it's always great to have that cash there. So there's a lot of benefits that people don't think of. And I think that's wonderful that you guys are making that plan together.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been fun to map it out. And this year we paid off car loans and consumer debts if we had any, and we had to eat through a wedding bill, which was not free. So we overcame a lot. Leading up to the wedding, it was like, oh my gosh, our monthly expenses are just so high. Why are all of our accounts going down? But we get through it and they start going up again. And it's like, okay, we have peace. So hopefully next year will be the first really strong build year. And I'm glad that both herself and myself have assets going into it. Having the right partner really makes it easier. If it was just me or if it was just her, it's doable, of course. A lot of people do it, but it would be a lot tougher.
Oh, yeah.
Cody, you touched on liquidity mode, but Flavio was asking if a good deal shows up, will you buy it?
I'm going to give you the answer without just saying yes or no. For every deal I've ever bought, with exception to maybe the last couple, I've never had the money in my account to buy it. So buying another deal would not hinder my ability to stack money on the side as long as it's cash flow positive. And I'm not buying any more alligators, as I've told Zuber. I just acquired one that is pretty negative, but did it to resolve a past partnership. Talk about paying for your mistakes. So yeah, I would still buy a good deal. And the thing on that is a good deal to oh, did I lose connection? Thing that said I lost connection. But I bought a deal for 430, about 25,000 into it. So with closing costs and everything, 430 plus 25 plus probably another 15 or so. I'm in it around 470, and I'm getting a loan on it in Q1. I've already engaged the lender for 550 because I got the asset value to 800. It was a great deal. So that's actually going to pull out all the money. It's going to pull out probably after fees like 60, 70,000, and it'll still cash flow. So it would be silly not to do that because that would get me closer to my goal, not further away. And that's the question that I like to ask myself: does it move me closer or further away? Because rarely do you add a piece or remove a piece and it keeps you exactly where you are.
Nick, so I know, you're really focused on Bitcoin right now, but I also know you're looking for a property possibly in Charlotte, more for personal reasons. But are you even actively looking for investment real estate deals?
Well, even in Charlotte, I'm looking for like a detached garage, stuff like that, so where I could kind of build a ADU either on top of it or through the garage and extend that. But I think one thing that Cody said is that it turned into it's a great deal, not just a good deal. I want a great deal. I think the older you get or the more money you get or anything else, you try to value your time and am I going to turn down a good deal? Maybe if there's a great deal there. You know what I mean? That's what I think the one thing that I would do, especially for real estate, because I still love real estate no matter what. I plan on doing it again in the future, especially in a state with more landlord friendly laws than California has. And so, yeah, for me, I would just look for great deals. I put in an offer on a disrespectful offer. I guess they wanted 425. I offered 300 grand. Haven't heard from them yet because Christmas, you know what I mean? But I assume they're going to counter with something. But that's what I think. You're looking for great deals. So if you have it depends on your portfolio. But I just would be a little bit more patient, trying to find something that's great and cash flows, like you said, no alligators, because you're gonna want that later down the line, especially if you're gonna refinance, fix it up, maybe bring in more tenants, depending on the type of property it is. So yeah, that's what I think.
Just reminding everyone that Nick and Cody are also both streaming on their channels right now. So you can also jump over there, subscribe, hit the like button, comment, but help the algorithm over there also. But this one is Alex, the accidental investor, says his 2025 lesson learned is don't buy an alligator. Cash flow is the key to financial freedom. As Cody just said, he bought an alligator, right? But to solve other issues, you said, right?
Yep, I did that. There was a lot of mistakes made in that deal. It was a deal that wasn't supposed to be seller financeable. I talked to the listing agent. It was a property next to the resort that I had just bought a few years ago, and it's awesome. 2.5 adjacent acres with water frontage, and everything about the deal made sense. The property, I should say, and we did a 3-year note. Shouldn't have done that. If it was not for that 3-year note, the deal would have stayed the way it was, and it would have been fine. But I had to refinance. Rates were higher. Also had to buy out partners. I used some of my liquidity, which was unfortunate. That would go to Flavio's question. That would ruin that objective. But it simplified my universe because it got rid of partners. And as of right now, doesn't do great. But I'll get it to make a little bit of money, and then I'll just chalk it up to School of Hard Knocks and hopefully be okay.
Yeah, I don't do partners myself. Why do I want to split the profit 50% or whatever else it is? So I understand why people do to finance deals. Maybe you wouldn't even be able to get the deal without them. But I don't like partners at all. One, because you don't want to ruin the relationship you might have with them. Two, people change when it comes to money as well. And then three, I don't want to split the profit. I think I learned that from Thatch Nguyen, of all people.
If someone did all the right things in 2025 but still feels stuck, what do you think they're missing? What do you think, Nick?
Well, it depends what they're talking about. How do they feel stuck? Do they feel emotionally stuck? Do they still feel stuck as financially, like they didn't do enough? Maybe they didn't push themselves. They didn't try to, go hard. Zuber talked about his a couple years ago. It was like he didn't grow that year, and he was just vacationing, living off his laurels or whatever. So I don't know what feel stuck is to that. I'd love to see it in the chat. Maybe you needed to push yourself harder. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you had something on your heart and your chest that you wanted to try and you just chickened out. Sometimes that happens as well. My friends and I, we call it the spirit of the chicken. Sometimes you get that spirit of the chicken and you're either afraid to talk to that investor, you're afraid to put in that offer, you're afraid to do another deal, or you're afraid to whatever. And when you have that, nothing is gained a lot of times. You feel stuck, you feel empty, you feel not yourself because you're not really being who you are. There's a reason you probably have those goals and ambitions in your spirit, in your heart. You have a drive that was built specifically for you. So I would think that's probably the reason. And then maybe you just feel stuck because you're working your W-2 job, but W-2s are great as well. They allow for great financing. They allow for steady income, and they allow for you to chase your dreams. The 9 to 5 pays for your family, and then the 5 to 9 pays for your future. So.
Any thoughts on that one, Cody? This question?
Yeah, it just depends where you're at in the journey. And an example, if you're at the stage of where Zuber is, which he's much farther than I am. He and I have talked about how I'm going to get to where he's at someday. But if you're where he's at and you do everything right, there's not going to be a year where you're not making progress because he has the resources, the know how, he's got the ability to do deals that move him forward. If you're in year 1 to year maybe 3, you could do everything right and not buy a deal. Think about it like Dion's year 1. He couldn't just go buy a deal with the knowledge or the money or the resources that he had. So he did all the right things so that he could eventually make that move. But I imagine if he wanted to do that and he couldn't do it, he could feel stuck in year 1. You could do all the right things, but if you don't have the right resources to make a move now, what doing the right things looks like is setting yourself up. Personally, for myself, I've had lenders say, and this is the nice way of putting what they said, you're too poor for this loan, is what they said. So rather than just saying, well, I'm stuck where I'm at, part of that other goal with my wife is, hey, let's work together so that we have this extra cash that we don't touch just to show the lender we can do this, and maybe they'll stop calling us poor.
Yeah, great.
I think that's kind of what Brady Morgan is saying. Would they be feeling stuck if they did all the right things? Oh, yeah. Maybe it's more a confusion as to what the right things are.
You could definitely feel stuck. Yeah.
Well, maybe too, they're in that 5 years of suck. I was thinking about this the other day. The 5 years of stuck in real estate usually takes a while for it to get all the great benefits of real estate, right? Whether it's the cash flow, taxes, whatever. Well, I was thinking the same thing for maybe Bitcoin or stocks in general. That maybe it takes time for that compound interest or things to take effect. And we want everything so instantly now with the Amazon world, where we get our packages the next day or sometimes the same day these days. But I think that it's all a process, and if you're in a rush, John Wooden says, "Be quick, but don't hurry." So sometimes we're in a rush for something, but it's more hurtful than beneficial. Sometimes we need to slow down and reflect. I would even argue that Zuber year where he didn't push himself as much as he could, he needed the mental space, I think, to reflect and get back to normal. I mean, there was a time where I worked 4 jobs. I was doing taxes as an accountant, teaching, coaching, and my parents owned a construction company. And I was working all of those at the same time. But I needed the mental space later. I couldn't even do that right now. You know what I mean? Not because I'm not mentally free, but I don't know. I think there's just a time in life where you could go hard and all those things, and there's another time where you need a little bit of rest, a little bit of reflection, a little bit of a break, and then it sounds like Zuber, he's ready to kind of grab another deal, even though he doesn't need one. So I don't know how those people continue to just grow like that. For me, I'm kind of going like back to Thatch Nguyen. He's like, if you get 10 rentals and they're all paid off and they're getting 2,500 a month, you're set for the rest of your life. So I like how Dion does his lazy landlord. If I was him, I'm not him. I understand why leverage works, so it's not about that. But I'd be paying off all those quadplexes he has and just continuing to live great life. But I'm not in the hustle phase in my mind where I just want to go, go, go and do and make more and more. I just want to enjoy the time I have. Enjoy my kids, enjoy my wife, enjoy my vacations, enjoy my sightseeing. I was talking to Cody earlier just about I like to go to national parks. Our family's been to 33 of the 63 national parks. We've been to 39 states. We want to go to all 50 states, so we've road tripped through a lot of them. We want to see the world, and I want my kids to just remember the memories they have. On my refrigerator, I have all the magnets from the different places, and I see my children look at them, and they remember the things. And they're, well, what'd you like about that trip? Oh, I like the beignets from New Orleans or whatever it is. You know what I mean? I liked, we went lobster fishing when we were in Maine, and just different memories. And it's maybe paid by real estate, Bitcoin, your W-2, but don't forget to live your life as well.
There was, where did it go? There was a, so as you touched on, Cody, about buying an alligator, Harrison Trade Better 99 is asking, what are your typical initial reactions when you realize you have an alligator property?
Well, everyone I've bought into, I've known was going to lose money from the start, and I've bought a few. That's it depends. So if you're buying a house, like a rental house, and it's your first one, your second one, your third one, and you thought it was going to cash flow a couple hundred, and then you realize that life happens and you actually lose money every month. That's a bit of an unfortunate situation because you usually don't have a way to fix it. So if you're realizing that, you're like, shoot, did I do something wrong in my underwriting? Was there something I could have done better? And your reaction should be, there's something I need to learn from this. When I bought my alligator deals, I knew they were going to be negative. And because I fixed them, I had a whole bunch of forced appreciation that was predictable. And I did hit those metrics. So some of the alligators I bought were by far the biggest cash flow and net worth movers in the whole portfolio. The problem is if you keep playing that game, eventually you get slapped. So your lesson from every alligator should be, there's a takeaway or two I have to get from this. Like my alligator right now, it loses 5 figures a year, which is unfortunate. But the lesson was, don't do 3-year notes with multiple partners, because the partners want bought out and you have to refinance it. You got to either come with a lot of money or take up a lot of debt. And so I ended up taking on a lot of debt. And I had to get my lessons from that. But that should be your first gut-wrenching reaction after you're like, oh my goodness, this sucks, the world's caving in. It's like, okay, well, what can I get away from this? Because if you don't learn anything, then you're just another person who bought a property and you're going to either make money or lose money someday. Like that's all it is.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that. I think a lot of people buy rentals and they have like aspirations of what rent I'm going to get. I'm going to get this rent. And then, no, that's best case scenario rent. In your mind, you got to think worst case scenario rent, and everything else is a bonus. Look at the situation with insurance. Every year, the insurance goes up. Lately, I don't know how it's been for 20 years because I haven't been investing in real estate for that long. But it's like that kills your cash flow when the insurance goes up, and then you raise the rent, and they're pissed at you because you raised the rent. And at least here in SoCal, they don't like landlords very much. They just think that you're rich and that you're taking advantage of them. They don't understand that I had to fix these things, or I will have to fix these things like a roof, HVAC, whatever, and in 10 years or in 5 years or in whatever time it is, and I'm planning ahead. So I think one of the things you need to do, I'm a basketball coach, so I'm thinking of offense and defense all the time. but you got to be defensive a little bit. What if I get this rent price? What's the worst rent price you could take? And sure, things might go up over time, but so might the insurance and costs and everything else. In addition, you might actually want to put more money down. It's funny, a funny thing called an alligator, right? It's like, oh well, it's killing your cash flow. But you could put more money down, and anything could cash flow. You want to put 70% down, it's going to cash flow. So it all kind of depends on what you decide is a good deal for you. Just because if you put 3.5% down, it's going to be hard to make a great deal of cash flow the way you want it. But if you put 10, 15, 20, 25, it all depends. But you should not put yourself in a situation where you're going to be stressed out the whole time. And you have to put a worst case scenario. What happens if I have an eviction, tenant turnover, and they break things? I think you shouldn't be looking at this as an easy job, a passive job, or it's just going to be great forever. I mean, if you own your own home, things break all the time. I had my roof leak recently, and I'm like, I got solder, and it's just like, oh man, but I can handle it, no problem. But at the same time, things don't work out perfectly, and that's okay. You don't feel as stressed. Look at Dion; he has like you just call your handyman, they take care of it. But if you don't plan for mistakes, you're going to end up kind of failing in your plan and stressing, and probably impact your physical health or your emotional health with your family, your wife, your kids, whatever. So be careful.
I know right now you're more focused on Bitcoin, but you had, like you said, you have real estate. What is it harder to deal with? The issues with real estate, or is it the volatility of Bitcoin?
Well, hmm, I guess, well, Bitcoin's a lot more risk because you can't predict the future of something that is really just getting off the ground. 10 years, a decade of Bitcoin is still young. So you could have tremendous upside because you're at the beginning stages of it, but there is more stress because you're wondering if it's going to get global adoption and adoption nationwide. Real estate is something that's already been adopted, so it's more secure. You feel comfortable with it. It's not going anywhere. People need a place to stay, but there's not as much upside in that individual moment. But it could take 5 years, 10 years, whatever, to be comfortable and keep building through leverage and so on. But you might get a 100x return on Bitcoin, or look what's going on with gold. Gold 70% return this year. Now that's not usually normal, so there's macro impacts. But I just like I like diversification. I know some people don't like that word. Some people say that's another word for less Bitcoin. You know what I mean? But for me, I like real estate. I like rentals. I like my niche of small multifamily. Cody's obviously, he's ability to adapt to all these different things is incredible. I'm more of a safe type of person. I got a teaching job. I wanted that safe check W-2 once a month that I get. So I'm not as risk averse, even though I ended up being more risky as I got older. I started doing real estate. I started being more entrepreneurial with Bitcoin and everything else. So you could change over time. You could stretch yourself and you could push yourself, but don't push yourself too far where you're throwing up because you're sick of the volatility of a Bitcoin drop or anything else. Even the idea of eviction, I thought people have those and it just ruins. I will never have another one. Look at Zuber, his first rental he talks about on Norris Drive, and he wanted to quit, and his wife was like, "No, we did everything right. Let's try to keep going." Imagine you're that close to your destiny, your future, your dreams, and you quit because the first hurdle, and it was a hard hurdle. Don't get me wrong. But because he didn't quit, here he is now, a successful man. And I think someone like Cody, Mark, or anybody in that field they're going to be successful because they just have something special about them inside that they're not going to quit. They're not going to give up, and they're going to learn their lessons and continue to grow from them. So yeah.
I think back to kind of the point of if someone feels stuck, even though they've done what they feel is, done everything right for 2025, I would kind of take what Flavio is saying is of now I understand why you have to be surrounded by people doing what you want to do. And I think if someone feels like they're behind or struggling, I think definitely trying to find your community or tribe in 2026 would be a great place to start. And like I said, we always talk about the school community or the one rental at a time community, but just find, the community or people that are doing what you want to do. Like if it's like Nick, I mean, I know you have like a group Bitcoin thread with your friends, I believe, right, that are doing more Bitcoin stuff. But I definitely think that um, helps you realize that you're on the right path, I think.
I'm gonna give you the downside of that real quick too, though. So some of my friends in those groups are Bitcoin maxis, and they're like, "No, this is forever. This is amazing." And I have my holding Bitcoin and I have like my trading Bitcoin because I love the volatility. That's why I trade it. And long story short is I sold a bunch of that. They think I'm crazy, and then it dropped tremendously after that. Well, I still have my little holding stack, but my trading stack now I get to buy in cheaper because I wasn't tied into this is the best thing since sliced bread. I can't. I gotta just live there and be there forever. I'm not that type of person. I'm gonna go with the waves and the weather. And the weather's telling me this is a great time for surf. And then there's a time where it's not a great time for surf. So that's why I did my real estate. I did my rentals. I did my ADUs. I sold them at the right time. 2022 was my last one, and obviously it's been great since then as well. And I was able to rotate that into Bitcoin, and I'll rotate again. I still love it. I still love real estate. I love Bitcoin, but I don't think you should get stuck on, well, I got to do single family homes or I got to, whatever happens. No, I think you could pivot to whatever is going on with the weather to be safer in your portfolio and in your life. And sometimes your friends are great. And sometimes I got to stop that conversation with him because I'm like, are you going to hold it even if I went to zero? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, all right, you're the wrong person I need to talk to then. Talk to people that are willing to understand the weather. So sorry, the coach is coming out of me. And no, not El Salvador. It's my logo. You just can't see it as much when it's on my computer. I'm Italian though. Nothing wrong with El Salvador, but go Italy.
Cody, Flavio's asking if you sell the alligator, it will solve the problem, or is it something that you like in your portfolio? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'd sell it. I mean, if anybody here wants a vacation home, it's great. 120 feet of waterfront, 2.5 acres, shop property, 2 RV pads, home with an ADU. It's 4,200 square feet.
Where's it at?
Hood Canal. So it's right next to one of the national parks, Olympics National Park. So if you want it, that'll be a vacay spot for you. You can trade.
Charlotte.
You'd only need 15 Bitcoin to buy it right now.
Oh
So
man,
if you got
that's
that.
nice. Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool. I would sell it if I got an offer for like 1.2. I'd just take the money and go buy some more apartments.
So was that an Airbnb or was it
It was when the partnership was running it. I'm running it just as long-term rental.
Okay, but it's kind of further away from things, so it's a little harder to get great rents. Is that what's going on, or?
No, it's just not my normal property. I don't like rental houses. I mean, it's cool because it's got multiple income streams.
Yeah.
One of the 2 RV spots, and I didn't spend any time trying to rent the other one. You have a partner because it's like, why are you going to do all this work if, like you mentioned earlier, right? You don't want to split the profit. So I was the only one that was going to do the work. One of them is rented for $500. The shop should rent between $500 and $1,000. It's over 1,000 square feet. It's pretty big. There's another RV spot that should rent for $500. The downstairs units rent just shy of $1,500 each, and upstairs should rent between $3,000 to $4,000. So, and there's some comps that show north of $5,000, but not banking on it. So it can do well. It can bring in $8,000, $9,000 a month of rents, but I'd rather just take the equity, take a couple $100,000, throw it in an apartment building, and turn the $200,000 to $300,000 into maybe $600,000-$700,000 over the course of 18 to 24 months on a repeatable deal like the ones I've been doing.
By any chance, do you use the RV park for tax benefits like the short-term rental loophole?
No.
Okay. I know I didn't see the whole clip, but I know Pace Morby, that's kind of his pivot now. He's like, man, short-term rental, people should just do RV parks because you can get the same average, less than 7-day average stay kind of thing, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, so I was just wondering if you're doing it for that reason.
No, I just rent out the space. They hook it up for power and water. They don't even live there, but it's just $500 a month, $6,000 a year, and that helps pay for some of the negative. But I would just sell it and get rid of the alligator. There's no reason to hold one. If you want to go there, just rent it.
Brady Morgan is saying the importance of reserves, cushion for when things don't go right, keeps a small problem from becoming a big one. Yep. There was one. Where did it go? Oh, here. Yes, I'm trying to get Nick to join, but he says and come to Vegas in February. He says John Litz is saying school is awesome, but February event is even better. Meeting the folks that you listen to, post with, and get ideas from in person is incredible. Get those tickets before they sell out. And to that point, Zuber did mention January 15th is when his is the cutoff date for ticket sales because he has to get a head count for food and get things kind of situated.
What's
And
crazy is like the speakers are really pretty awesome that he's going to have there. Especially like for me, I like the Rob built one. Like I think that's an incredible addition to have. But the dang hotels that weekend are crazy. The prices, by the way, if you looked at those, they're stupid.
well, that's if you're staying on the strip. That's why I think.
I mean, if you're going to stay on the strip, brother, you know what I mean? Yeah. So,
Did Cody? What about you? Did you decide where you're staying at?
Not yet. I need to
Not.
book a hotel.
the problem is
Uh,
it's Valentine's Day, bro. It's not that easy to just be like, hey, let's go do a conference. You know what I mean? Like, I used to coach and have games on Valentine's Day, so it was already like, nah, that's over with. Now I got to be careful.
you got to just tell her every day is Valentine's Day.
Oh yeah, that's yeah. You already lost right there. Just tell her you're already done.
Uh, let's see. Yeah, but to that point, I mean, Cody is speaking. Like you said, Rob Built, Row Built. I don't know. I don't know what the proper way to say. I think it's Row Built, Pace Morby, Jason Hartman, Brandon, Built Different Investing. Oh, John Litz is saying there's a 50% discount on the Golden Nugget, but that's not on the strip for um, Nick, John. But
Know
let's
where the
see.
golden egg is at.
It's Fremont Strip. That side
I
of
like the win.
Vegas.
You know what I mean? The Venetian. Big
I
one.
think I think that's where Brandon is staying, the Venetian.
Oh, beautiful.
But let's see what else we got here. Oh, Josh Burdick is saying, "How are you renting your RV spots? Self-managed? We've stayed at one, and that was totally automated online for booking and payments."
Well, again, it's just like storage. So I just post it up online. If someone doesn't want to have their RV on their property, they got power, water, all the hookups. They can just park it there, and I put it on Facebook Marketplace. That's how I rent out a lot of my weird stuff. It's not as normal.
That's cool.
Let's see. Ooh, what one habit people must drop in 2026 if they actually want their net worth to grow?
I think getting rid of distractions. There's too many distractions in this world. I mean, your phone is designed to distract you. All those apps keep you swiping, keep you looking at reels, whatever it is. Now I know we're on Instagram or X and YouTube, so the hypocrisy right there is something. But there's too many distractions in this world. Even your friends can be distractions sometimes. They're calling you to dump their trouble, their stress, their pain, their heartache, and you got to sometimes turn your phone off and just dial yourself in. I even heard Alex Ramosi talk about this before. He's like, you know what? There's a lot of things getting in the way of your success for the next year, and that could be your own fault because you're not willing to say no. You're not willing to turn your phone off. You're not willing to just lock yourself in the room and continue to study, grow, and stretch. So I think for me, the number one thing is distractions. And if you could get rid of all the distractions or as many as possible, I think you're already going to have more success the next year.
Cody, any thoughts?
Fluffing your numbers and flexing to people. I mean, there's a lot of that. I've got people that I used to be friends with. I'm not really anymore. A lot of people do it. They just try and fluff up their numbers to make themselves look incredible, and then behind closed doors, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm struggling with this or this addiction, or I lost all this money gambling, or it's crazy stuff. But they got the Midas touch on the internet, and when they're speaking at an event, don't be that person. That's a bad habit, and it'll get you into bad situations because people are going to make assumptions that you can do certain things, and then you can't follow through, and it'll create a detrimental path for yourself. So don't don't fluff your numbers, just give the truth, try not to flex it up. And that I look at some of the videos I posted years ago, got a lot of attention, but they were obnoxious. And everything I said I did, but some of the videos were positioned in a way to make it look like I was a little richer than I was, and you know, that's not good.
Yeah, just like those Bitcoin Venetian Lambo posting
Yeah.
content creators, right? No, I'm just playing, Nick.
Hey, mine's real. I sent you
No,
screenshots.
I know. I'm just playing. um, but Grumpy Contractor Jim says, Cody, now that you have a W-2 in the family, wouldn't the short-term rental with a tax loophole all good for you tax-wise?
No, I mean, could it be good for me? Sure, but I have more than enough write-offs from the apartment buildings I buy. Yeah, because I'm a real estate professional. I've qualified for that every year for a while, and so it, talking with my EA and my CPAs, like I'm good with the write-offs that I get. So I don't want to branch off to this new shiny object just because I can get something. I'd rather just keep doing what I know how to do. I've already learned that lesson, so it's not worth it to me.
Have your goals switched from wanting to continue to grow to, is there like an end goal in mind, or are you just going to continue to grow forever, or do you see yourself simplifying all the way down to something like I said, 10 rentals, 50 rentals, whatever it is, and paying them off?
10 wouldn't be enough in my market. 10, even high end single family rentals would be about 5 million in real estate, and that is significantly less than I currently hold. There wouldn't be a tax efficient way to get there. So I right now I'm repositioning stuff into newer apartments and townhomes. So I'm buying like 7 units that are adjacent to each other. There's a strip in the town where I live where it's like all seven plexes. And so I bought one, I've got the ground to build another one, and I'm buying the ground to build another two. And so that'd be 28 townhomes. And if I can reposition my older apartments into some of these, which I'm working on selling right now, then I'd have about 70 brand new townhomes without partners
Nice.
that are worth between 225 to, I mean, it depends where the market's at, right? But 225 to 250 a unit. And so that sits wherever that sits for valuation. But the cash flow would be more predictable. The capex would be more manageable. And from there, I'd have a foundation to then scale again. But I don't see myself ever going to 10 single family rentals. Couldn't do it.
Charles is asking, Cody, how does one turn 300K into 600K in 18 months?
Okay, well, let's give an example on that. So I mentioned the deal I bought for 430, but I'm going to use round numbers because I've done deals of this size too. You buy a $1 million project. The bank puts up 75%, the seller puts up 15% in second, and you put 10% down. It's a reasonable debt stack, and you can find banks in any decently sized market. Like I'm not talking 200 people or 5,000 people, but in any market, maybe you've got 30 to 50,000 or more, you can find a bank who will likely allow a seller second. And sometimes it's not going to be local. The one that's doing it for me is based in Texas when I don't own in Texas, I own in Washington. Found them through a mortgage broker. So you're putting 10% down because you have 90% debt. The bank note right now is going to be in the sixes, and the seller note is going to be whatever you negotiate. So you're putting 100 grand down, and you have 200,000 to remodel. So what I'd be looking for in that situation is what are strategic renovations I could do to increase the NOI? Because the type of deals I do are valued off the net income, the cash flow you'd get if you had no debt. That's all it is. That's all NOI is. How much cash flow you get if you have no mortgage payments. So I'd be looking to allocate that 200 grand into a renovation. It could be adding units within the existing structure, turning a 3-2 into a 2-1 and a 1-1 to get the rents up. It could be doing a remodel, take the rent from 800 to 1100. I've done that many times. Or taking the rents from 900 to 1400. I've seen that happen too on some of my stuff. But in that situation, turning 300 to 600, we're looking for a $300,000 value add. So if your cost basis is the million plus 200 reno, can we get that project to be worth 1.5 plus sales costs if you wanted to sell it? Can you do that with a $200,000 rental budget? And you're looking for that deal. That would become your buy box. But that's how I've done it again and again. It's 10% down plus some renovations, boost the value, and then refinance. So I bought a deal for 680, 120 down, borrow the 120, got it to through 200 grand in renovations. Got to be worth 1.4 million. Got a loan on it for 985, and I've just done a bunch of deals like that over the last couple of years.
Yeah, so you're 1031 exchanging your deals when you're selling them, or are you selling them straight up? Because that could be the difference in writing it off and not when you do the appreciation.
I'm 1031ing some of them, and I'm not 1031ing others.
Gotcha.
It just depends on how I stacked it originally. Like there's properties where I've doubled the value, and it's not like I got a good deal when I bought it. I did a lot of work to it, spent a lot of time and money. I bought some of the worst properties in the county, and I bought some of the really nice ones too. But I bought a building for $2 million that was listed for $2 million for 13 years straight. It was listed for sale when I was 8, bought it when I was 21. And,
Wow.
now that one having appraised for 3.9. If I sell that, I of course will 1031 because that would be a large tax bill with the depreciation, all that. Whereas there's other buildings where it's smaller dollar figures, I'd rather just pay the tax and have time.
So I think Brady is kind of giving the same game plan as Cody just mentioned. He says multifamily, decrease expense, increase revenues by reducing vacancy or raising rents. Can easily gain that much even with the same cap rate if you buy distress. And I think Cody, um, is it kind of the 50-40-10 you just mentioned, the type of financing you're doing?
No, it's 75, 15, 10. The 50-40-10, the problem with there's always going to be a market for it. So I want to preface this. The problem I found is every 50-40-10 lender, the rates are terrible. We're talking 9%, 10%, sometimes plus. And having done a lot of deals and having the experience to qualify for all those loans, why the heck do I want to borrow on a long-term fixed rate debt product at 9 to 10%, even in the high 8s? When you can, on these commercial deals, you can get banks to be in the 6s and give you more leverage. So it's like, why would I want to get less and pay more? If that's your way in, you get in where you fit in. I'm a big believer in that. But I wouldn't do the 50-40-10 today unless I absolutely had to. And I hope I'm never in a position where I have to do a deal.
That's a lesson though on financing too, because it could be a 10% deal, a hard money lender. It could be a commercial loan, which is a little higher than, a small multifamily that you might be doing, or a house hack, or, you can get different rates. So that plays a huge part into the financing of everything, the cash flow of everything. And doing your research, I think somebody said, I can't remember, I saw in here something about 2026 kind of being their year after they did a lot of learning. Well, those are the things that matter, the learning of rates and how they work, and cash flowing, and all those little things that you haven't done before. Just keep building upon your foundation. You get the property, maybe you're property managing it, maybe you want to grow and it's too much work for you, so you want to hire a property manager. There's so many different aspects to it. If you learn them, and actually learn them from honest people, not just kind of saying they got 1 million units and they never do any work for it, and all those lies. Deal with the honest people. You can start small and grow and build, and you're going to be more comfortable doing it that way because it's honest work. That's why I said earlier, you got to be accountable. Like, honestly, you got to have friends that tell you the truth. Hey, I want, maybe you don't say they're broke, but like, hey, maybe you can't afford this deal without stressing or straining the deal, or maybe things won't work out because you didn't run the numbers. So many times I see people, they just have the best case scenario. It's going to appreciate to this amount and it's going to cash flow this and my tenants are going to be perfect and nothing's going to break. And I know they don't say that out loud, but they're calculating it like that. And that's a huge problem.
But Cody, to that, it's the same where it's a 90% combined loan to value, though, right?
It
Where
is. It's just
yeah,
easier to make the debt work. I
yeah.
mean, it's way easier.
So people are typing in the chat. I put a question out there. It says, are you entering 2026 for more clarity or more confusion, and why? So John Deconstructing Dreams is saying 2026 is all about getting my second short-term rental up and running and getting funds back up. Things are getting tight from the build. Yeah, he's been posting on school, keeping everyone updated. He is going through a lot of challenges, unforeseen. I think sewer line issues that came up, and then some health issues. But he's pushing through. Alex, the accidental investor, says 2026 the year of clarity for me. I didn't even know I was an investor in January of 2025. I've learned so much. 2026 is a year of application, of a year of an intentional learning. Let's see. So Josh is saying, Josh Burdick, would you condoize those new townhomes for an eventual sell-off, or is it just easier as a 7 unit to sell?
My game plan is not to sell them independent, and I would not sell them as sevenplexes unless I absolutely had to. When it's all said and done, there's going to be over 180 units. I'd have to recount exactly how many. But if I can get half of that, if I can get to 15 of these 7 units or 13 side by side sevenplexes, whatever the metrics are, it's going to be easier to sell 90 units or 105 units than it would be to sell 7. And it's going to be easier to sell the 90, 100, whatever units than it would be to sell 1. Because they're nice, they're new, they're centrally located, and there are funds that are looking to buy stuff specifically like that to get predictable cash flow. So I am pushing to stack a portfolio of $15 to $30 million of real estate that I own with no partners right there. And that'll be like block A of the portfolio. And then I'll try and do block B. And if it ever makes sense to 1031 block A, that'll be a headache that I'm not prepared for right now, but I'm not prepared for it because I haven't done it. And so when you get there, you get there. And just doing all the steps today, even though I'm not there, to one day be able to get there.
I'm going to just skip over real quick. Flavio is saying those townhomes are in a great location.
Yeah, you can move in. I'm going to have an empty in 2 months.
Flavio is also saying definitely apartments are better when you have vacancies, with singles having them 2 months empty hurts.
Oh, yeah.
John Deconstructing Dreams is asking, do you find that tenants are of a better quality for small multis, 4 or less unit or apartment buildings? Multis, 4 or less units or apartment buildings?
I can go first if you want. I mean, my single best tenant ever is in an apartment building. My worst tenant is also in an apartment building. I own rental houses. I've owned rental houses for multiple years. I've had great luck with those tenants. My first tenant in my rental house was a nightmare. So, like Flavio was mentioning, if you have a bad experience, your experience is very bad. I've done maybe 50 evictions over the last 6.5 years. So I'm that, and really over that 6.5 years, it's probably been in the last 3. So I'm that big mean landlord that actually wants you to pay your rent and will follow through if you don't. But I have some of my best tenants in apartments, and Class C apartments at that. Some of my most hands-on tenants, the way I should put it, are in my nicer stuff. So I I think the way you treat people, regardless of their economic class, is going to determine how they treat your apartment and how they communicate with you.
Yeah, in my research, there was more turnover in the apartment buildings than there are in the small multifamilies because they could be more like a home kind of, and they'll stay longer. In the research, I was my own property manager here in Southern California because evictions could be a pain here. So 50 of them might give me a heart attack if I was here in SoCal. So I wanted to make sure that I was really kind, nice, and um, really detailed in my who I allowed to rent my units. You know what I'm saying? Because one, I didn't want a property manager that just treated them like maybe less than, because that's not true. Just because they're renting, they're people and they're wonderful most of the time. And then I also didn't want them throwing just anybody in there that has low character, low values, low credit score, whatever it is. So I made sure to really be hands on. And my units, also, they're more expensive here. They're $1 million for that duplex or whatever you want. So you want to really make sure that you're putting the right people in. And I had great experiences with the people that I did have for the most part. And things come up, of course. But at the same time, I like small multis for that reason. I think they're going to stay a little longer. But Cody would know best. He's the expert on that.
No, I'm getting there. The day that I'll be the expert on that, I'm the expert on evictions now. Say that.
How long is the eviction there?
It used to be much longer. Now it's 2 to 3 months.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Well,
I can get people out. It just costs like $3,000 to $4,000 and 2 months of rent.
Yeah.
and to Hyder's point, he's saying to Cody's point, treatment is key. Like Lumberjack Landlord says, curate a great experience. Great stuff. And I also want to point out, like Lumberjack, he's elite at what he does, and yet he still has tenant turnover or vacancies or evictions or tenant issues. So even someone who's elite and does everything probably exceptionally well, they even struggle, right? So those of you out there that are having problems or issues or tenant issues, just realize that sometimes it's just part of it. You can do everything right, you can screen them properly, you can think you're vetting them properly, and you still can have issues, and you just want to limit it as much as possible and always try and learn from it, like Cody said, I think earlier, learning from your mistakes and not making the same mistakes. But I think you can do everything well, and like I said, Lumberjack is a great example. I mean, as great and efficient as he is, he still has tenant turnovers and evictions he has to deal with.
Do you think, though, that's from growing so big? You see, Dion, at least he seems to have less turnover. Um, like,
Well,
so
I don't.
is it
I,
easier to be hands on when you have less?
I, true, yes, but I think Dion. I mean, maybe he lives a charmed life or he's very fortunate. But you look, I mean, I think if you look like his Chesala, I believe, right? Picked up some properties, and like he says, like within the first 3 or 4 tenants she got, all of them needed evictions, right? So, Dion is helping her through this, and even someone close in his circle who is following his kind of blueprint is faces challenges, right? So you could do the same things and do the same processes, and yet for whatever reason, it just may not work out as well as you, right? And even he's kind of confused, like, right, like, man, I haven't had an eviction in how many years, and Chesla's first 3 tenants, like, all of them have to go through the eviction process, right? So I think knock on wood or what, but Dion probably has been, he's put great systems in place, so he's probably limiting the risk. But at the same time, it can happen to anyone too, right?
I also think, too, the macroeconomics of a K-shaped economy is the rich have money. They're doing just fine. But the bottom half of the K, they're hurting. They're losing jobs. We see that the labor market's hurting. People's wages have not grown in enough time, and things are expensive because of inflation. So sometimes I think with rentals dependent, that could be harder right now than it was 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, just for that simple fact that people are struggling. And when people struggle, they could also be struggling mentally because here in California, you're like, anywhere you are, you want to take care of your kids, you want to take care of your family. And when you can't, it brings a lot of stress. Divorces happen, separations happen, and people respond differently during all those situations. And it can be negative on your rentals.
Brady Morgan, who's been a kind of regular viewing the channel recently. I thank you for stopping by. But he says 2026 is same clarity as always for me. Continuing the plan, building the portfolio, hoping to put more time into my channel this year, though. Yes, so if you have a chance, I do not have his link, but Brady, if you are here, you can always put your link in the chat. He does a lot of new builds also in his area, so go check out his channel. I believe he's also finishing up on a book, so that should be coming out in 2026, I believe. Um, we'll wrap things up real soon. We'll get to these final questions. John is saying, I'm similar like Dion. I want to reduce the turns as much as possible. But on the other hand, I love the idea of being able to force the appreciation over lots of units for a major game. Hard to decide the better option. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think there's a wrong option, right? You just got to figure out what fits best for your lifestyle. I think to John's point, he always says he has less years maybe to hit his goal. He's on the older side. He has about 5 years to hit his for his pension, I believe. So for him, his timeline is accelerated, and that's why he is doing the short-term rental. He knows it's a lot more work and a lot more pain, but he's trying to generate more cash flow currently because his window is a lot shorter. He feels where he's at is in the stage of his life.
You got to be
Uh,
of um, kind of growing too fast. That's how you could get in trouble as well. We see that even in businesses. It doesn't matter if you're a Wendy's. I think Wendy's closed 130 stores or whatever it is. If you grow too fast, if you get too thin on your liquidity, and if you didn't learn your lessons early, and you want to kind of learn your lessons early as you grow. I like that scaling method that Brandon Turner talks about. Is you start with your single family maybe, and you go to your duplex, then your quad, and then your eightplex, and then your 16, and then maybe you're done at that point. But you kind of learn a lot along the way through each of those steps. And instead of being in a rush to get rich, you can actually go broke trying to get rich because you over leveraged yourself and overstressed yourself. And you haven't learned to get your systems in order in a way that keeps the tenant happy and that keeps you happy and less stressed. To be able to go on vacation like Dion and still be okay with your rentals took time for systems. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's just something people need to be careful of. Getting rich quick sometimes is the worst lesson you could learn through pain.
And I would say on that, rather than just starting with the house, then the duplex and the fourplex, I think Brandon Turner made a video on that called the stack way back when.
Yes.
Invest in what you understand. So if you've done a whole bunch of studies and you understand commercial, you should probably go start with commercial, even though a lot of people are going to say, well, don't do that. If you understand a storage unit better than you understand a single family rental or a eightplex, you should probably buy the storage unit. You should start with what you understand, because then you can actually execute on the business model.
Great point. The only thing I would add to that also is I would probably flip it to more lumberjacks method if you were going to do the residential side, is start with the quadplex if possible or the bigger, and then work your way down back to the single family or primary home, right? So maybe start with the quad, get in with the low down conventional financing, and it's easier to justify why you're getting or moving into a more of a traditional home in a sense, right? So working that path. So the 4-3-2-1 method, but yeah, like you said, you understand what you're doing. And I think that's why a lot, even some people that are commenting in the chat, they're accidental landlords, right? So a lot of people, that's just what they know. They got into the single family home, and that's kind of started their real estate journey. And maybe we can wrap it up with this final. We are not tax providers or give tax information, but Janelle is saying she just learned about rep status. I handle our rentals, and my husband has a W 2. Any tips for filing for the first time? So I believe, Cody, you mentioned that. And like, I just want to reiterate, we're not giving tax advice here, but Cody, how do you handle it?
I send all my stuff to my EA and ask them if they have any opinions on how to make it better. So I give them all the financials. They get all, then they prepare the K1s, and unfortunately, lesson learned, you need to meet with them before you finish the year. So if you want to have any type of strategy, rather than playing catch up, you anticipate what you need to do. But send all your docs to your CPA. Don't file it yourself. I wouldn't do that. And look for the professional opinion. It's worth spending money to get the best professionals that you can.
Yeah, we use the word understand before you do it often. Well, the same for your tax planning. I said I did taxes for 7 years. You should be meeting with your accountant way before you start doing any of the things. You know what I mean? So you sit there, you tax plan together, you have lunch, whatever it is, and you tell them your goals, and they'll tell you a roadmap to the best way of doing it. At least they should if they're any good at their job. And you need to follow that plan. If they tell you a separate account, use the separate account. If they tell you any of these certain things, make sure you follow those steps and not try to, I guess, build the plane while it's up in the air already.
Where's the question? Somebody just asked what a EA is. I just saw. Where was it? Oh, there. Somebody answered it already. Enrolled
Mm.
agent. Yeah. So that's one of the things like Lumberjack touches on like who he was seeking out for when he was looking for a tax provider or to do his taxes. He just didn't want, he wanted a certain qualification in his tax provider. But Janelle, I'd also say, yeah, a lot of it is just documentation, right? A lot of times, you have to meet certain thresholds, and usually they say if it's that easy to record it, most likely it won't be counted towards your hours and whatnot for the status. So, but there is apps out there too. I know there's like for Apple iPhone or iPhones, there's the reps tracker. So people use that to document and track all their hours for their rep status. And then you can provide that to your CPA.
Get a
Um,
CPA that does rentals. That's great for you. That's just something I recommend. Like, don't just go with any CPA. I know they're certified. I get it. I understand. But if they do rentals, they really expertise in that tax code for that. They can really help you save a lot of money and build your portfolio even faster because they know a lot of things. So I would recommend just doing your research. Hey, do you have rentals? No, and keep building.
I believe Jen is asking, do most people have meetings with their CPA to talk about tax strategies? Like, oh, she says twice a year, or how often do you guys talk to your tax?
I call mine. Well, I did taxes, but I call them even with them. I would call them before I do anything. Before I do any new deal, before I sell a property, I call them every single time I have a question for things like that, and they answer the phone. Maybe because I just I work there with them, but I don't. Even if I know the information, I still want another reliable source to make sure I'm not missing something. So I don't think it's hurtful to call them. And let me tell you, most people don't call their tax person at all. So in the off season, your accountant's probably free to answer a lot more calls than during the season, and that's when you should really heavily rely on them.
All right. Well, this was a great episode. I thank Nick for helping us out, jumping on. He's on Christmas break. Cody had a long weekend of hiking. He has to get ready for his interview with Zuber coming up also. So hopefully he can get a quick nap. But any final words heading into 2026? Cody can go first for everyone.
Mm, just be intentional. A lot of people waste their time doing things that don't matter to their actual goals, and you should be intentional with the time and the resources that you have, and take every challenge as an opportunity to learn from it.
Nick?
Oh, I'm going to give you something I think is great. So take notes right now if you haven't already. As a teacher, I do a GPA assignment. It makes sense, right? Your grade point average. But in this case, it's goals, plans, actions. So I recommend you write down your goals for relationships, for finance, for physical health, mental health, spiritual health, two goals for each. And then you look at them and you cross out, you look at which one's the one you think is the most important to you and cross out the other one. So now you have your goal that you really want to accomplish this year. So you have your goals, and then you move to your plan. You make a plan for each of those. You write it out, and then after that's your action. What's your next step that you're going to do? Right, your goals, your plans, your actions. I do that with all my students in class Let me tell you, high school kids think you're wasting their time. You're like, what does this matter? And then later in life, they call me and they're like, Massey, that was incredible. I do that now with my wife. I'm like, yeah, you didn't like it then, but you'll like it now. So just something I recommend going into the new year. Sit down with your wife, do a GPA assignment.
I love that. And if you haven't figured out a goal yet, maybe the goal should be to attend the Vegas event in 2026. So those of you out there that haven't purchased your tickets or are still on the fence, you have a few more weeks to get those tickets. Go check out your hotel, your lodging, where you're going to stay. Most of us are going to be at the Grand or the Nugget. It sounds like a lot of meetups are going to be going on. I'll be back tomorrow. Brandon is unable to do it, but Curtis, who's also a teacher who's on Christmas break, is going to fill in. And Hold It with PM Jen is also going to be back. She's a fan favorite now. People keep asking her to come back on. She's a property manager in Pennsylvania, and people just love her energy. So she'll be joining us tomorrow. But everyone, thanks for tuning in. Cody, Nick, see you guys in the new year, I guess, after this, if not. But
All
thanks for
right.
doing this. All right, everyone.